Life Audio.
Hi, my name is Jeff King. I'm the president of persecution.org and one of the world's leading experts on religious freedom. I focus on spiritual growth, religious freedom, and persecution around the globe. You're listening to Faith Under Fire. All right, well, welcome back to Faith Under Fire. I'm Jeff King. I'm your host and the president of International Christian Concern. And Faith Under Fire is where we deepen, define, or defend your faith. I think I say this about every show because I'm fascinated every show, but this is such a fave. I've got, the guy you're looking at is Billy Hallowell. He's with CBN, we're longtime colleagues, cares deeply about persecution. But we've worked together, and I've worked together with CBN for years and years, decades. But anyways, love the whole crew, love Billy. Billy, welcome, and tell us about yourself.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so, as you mentioned, I work at Christian Broadcasting Network, and, you and I have done many interviews together, and usually I'm on the other side of this interviewing you, so this is fun. But yeah, my background's been in media and hosting and writing and covering a lot of news and faith, and so it's been a pretty amazing journey that kind of led to this new documentary that we're going to talk about on miracles today. So I've been working in media now for, well over 2 decades, so it's been a lot of fun.
You're old, man.
I know.
But
I started when I was 15. I started when I was 15, literally, no joke. I mean, I started as a teenager with a project that was a fun hobby that actually developed into something very real.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Sounds like God had a path for you. Well, I take it back. You're not old then.
Yeah, so this is Investigating the Supernatural Miracles. And that subtitle, Miracles, it's so interesting because when this project came about, it was intended to be a 3-part TV series. And our thought was we would tackle miracles, heaven and hell, angels and demons, and we would do that in this TV series, and each one, again, would be 30 minutes. When we went out to start filming, it was immediately clear.
Yeah.
As soon as we started looking at the miracles, we were like, this is a feature film. This is not a series, and that shifted the entire dynamic. So we ended up really looking at this as more of really a feature film on miracles that quite possibly, hint, hint, potentially, could become a trilogy of films instead of a 3-episode TV series.
Yeah, it's the Christian version of Stranger Things.
Basically, except with real stories and no upside
Except with
down.
real stories.
Yes.
Yeah, but seriously, and people are fascinated by this, and as you guys have thought about, this has such potential with the lost, because people are interested, they're so searching, and I told you, the book I just wrote, I just review and think about myself. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and the constant searching and fascinated with the supernatural, wanting to break through. Human beings want to break through, even with drug use, with the hallucinogens. There is something out there, and they want to reach it. So, oh my gosh, this could just do really well with the lost.
Yeah, and I think what I loved about this project, miracles, when you look at the polling, and I love looking at data, 80% of Americans, if you go back, 15 years or so, believed in miracles. It's still well over 66%. I mean, it depends on who's asking and how they're asking it, but the point is the majority of the country believes that miracles are possible. That includes believers, non-believers, people who are agnostic, they're not really sure. This idea that there's something else, right? We all face death, we all face illness, and I think the reason that stat is so high, though, is that there are a lot of people, and they don't always talk about it, who, whether they're Christians or not, have seen people be healed, have seen things happen that they can't explain. And so because there's that thirst and that hunger, I agree. I think this is the type of conversation and project that can really appeal to the churchgoer who loves Jesus, and to the person who doesn't know anything about Jesus but is interested and curious.
Yeah. And tell you what, let's get a break. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, and we're going to be right back. All right. Well, Billy, welcome back. Okay, so talk about, you kind of delved into this, but who is the audience? It sounds like you've got a couple different targets there, but talk about what is the audience, or who are the audiences, and you can rank them in terms of either effort or how well it will be received. Just unpack that.
Yeah, okay, so the first audience is obviously Christians, people who believe in miracles, who love miracles, who want their faith affirmed. And the approach here, just so people understand, it's called investigating the supernatural because we go in depth investigating. I don't tell people what to think. We are showing you, not just telling you. A lot of times when it comes to miracles, you're telling people, here it is, this was a miracle. We're showing documentation. Yeah. We're asking people to prove it and to take us through. And then we're offering multiple interviews, multiple documentations to help people navigate that. So that's the first group, right? You have the Christians. Then you have this other group of Christians, and these are people who go to church every week. They might read their Bible every day. They're seeing incredible stories in the Bible, miracles, God moving, and yet they don't really believe that miracles are still possible today. And so that's the second group. The third group would be the atheists, the agnostics, the people who are not really sure what they think, and they're maybe even very skeptical of the kinds of stories that we tell in investigating the supernatural. That would be the third group that I think could be attracted to this. So it's a very wide, sweeping, range of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just brings to mind, if anybody is primed to put this content out, it's CBN. I mean, this, because you guys are doing this stuff all the time. You do it really well. And of course, production experts and high quality. But you mentioned something. How much investigation do you do? Like you said, you're already aware. We don't want to put out bogus stories, and there is a bogus story a minute. So how do you work through that? How do you filter through that?
Yeah, that was a lot. We put a lot of work on the back end of this, during it. I mean, the director, Jared Anderson, who is the brains behind the entire project. I think a lot of times when you're hosting a project like this and people see you attached to it, they assume you did everything. Right. And really it's the people who, and you know this, leading an organization. Many times it's the people behind who are doing a lot of this. And so, but Jared and I was a producer on the project with, alongside him. He directed it, he scripted it. And you do have a script for something like this because you have to build the narrative around the stories and connect them. So we spent a lot of time thinking through those stories and making sure we had compelling cases. We would find cases that we liked. We'd find interview subjects that we liked, but there were times that we had to make decisions and say, that's not going to work, Or are they really able to convince us that what they went through is ironclad and true, because we wanted the strongest possible examples of miracles that we could find. And so a lot of work and effort. We started working on this. I think our conversations began in the summer of 23. And so here we are in March of 25. This has come out, but it was over a year of filming. So I've learned a lot about how to make a film during this time. And it's a huge process with a lot of debate and discussion about those kinds of things.
It just leads me to the natural question. It's kind of the flip on what our back discussion we've had. Maybe I should make a documentary. What do you think? Yeah, but how would it be produced? So anyways, and you talked about the audience, and just personally, why did you want to do this? Why did CBN want to do this? You kind of touched on it, but go ahead and unpack that.
Yeah, I think this really, and I don't want to be cliche, but this very much was a God project in terms of how it came about. I mean, it's not cheap to make a documentary. It's not easy to make a documentary. It required, I had to sit down with my wife and say, look, we've got a busy schedule. We've got kids. This is going to require me to leave a lot and to be gone for days at a time and to be with a crew and to be in different, we really traveled. When we say in the description we went around America, we really did. We've been California, Florida, Indiana, I was just in Wisconsin for something else related to this project. So we've been all over the country, and we had to really make a lot of decisions. But the point is, God made it very easy. He paved the way for us to do this. And I think really, there's a lot happening in the country right now. There's a lot happening spiritually. And I think that a project like this comes at the right time, because you're watching college students flock up at campuses to accept Jesus. You're watching these revival moments unfold and this craving for something more spiritually. And at the same time, you have these stories that maybe people have not heard that help actually fill some of those voids and those questions and point to God in the midst of so much chaos that's going on too, on the flip side. So, we really wanted to address what we thought were some of the big topics that are often untouched in the church. They're often not covered enough. Sometimes they're overemphasized in some circles, but I think the bigger issue is you need to be digging in. Like even at Halloween time, and I've talked a lot about this, you have all of these movies that come out about evil, about the demonic realm, about, and it's like Hollywood's talking about church topics, not the right way, but they're talking about them more than the church is talking about them. And so that was a big motivation for me to be able to say, you know what, let's really dig into this and let's give it an approach that maybe some of the secularists can appreciate, because we're going in as, even though we're Christians, we're going in as skeptics on these stories and helping people unpack them.
Yeah. And it's something, that whole evangelism aspect and drive. And I'm assuming, like, in your case, you're within the CBN family. So it's not like a normal documentary filmmaker. You have to go out and get funding. You have to sell it to the leadership, right? And then they say yes, they greenlight it.
Yep. CBN Films does amazing work. CBN Films produces a number of films a year. It depends on the year what they're putting out, but we have a whole division that this is what they specialize in. With so Jared Anderson is on staff at CBN too. So we're unique in that CBN's a really unique place that we do. I mean, there's so much happening in the ministry, from the media side down to actually being on the ground doing humanitarian aid, down to the documentary. So but you have to make, if you're only doing a couple films a year, it's hard. I'm sure there's a trillion ideas that get left on the cutting room floor, so
But that was really the point of the question. I was starting to dig in because it tells you something about the leadership and the DNA of the organization. So, because people will get different ideas of what CBN is. It's a bit of an elephant, right? So if you hold the trunk, it's, or if you hold the tail or the leg, to each person it's something different. And to the masses, they're maybe watching the news show and that's CBN. But CBN does so much, and there's so much around evangelism, which most people don't know about. There's just a whole thing under the surface. It's just incredible what CBN does. So, like you said, they have to be judicious. They have to be very careful with what they greenlight and pick. So for them to pick this, it just really says something about their heart and their motivation.
Absolutely. I mean, we tell a lot of miracle stories. And one thing right now, so people know, because I'd love people to check this out too, you can go to cbn.com/supernatural, and that's where you can watch the film and you can stream it. You can, you give a donation, any donation amount, you're able to stream it. And there's DVDs too. If a lot of people still buy DVDs, interestingly. So that's all available there. But we're also telling miracle stories right now on Saturdays on our Quick Start podcast. We're telling them throughout the campaign of talking about this documentary, really amazing stories. We tell miracle stories all the time. So to be able to do this in a theatrical sort of sense and to be able to do it as a film has been really rewarding, because it sort of doubles down on that work that we, for decades, I mean, CBN's been inspiring people with these stories.
Yeah, good deal. Okay, we're going to take another break and we're going to be right back. All right, Billy, welcome back. I think you've got some clips for us. Why don't you set us up? What's the first clip and what is this about?
So the first clip that you're going to see is Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and some of this is reenactment with his real voice talking through. So we'll roll that clip, and then we can talk about it.
I cry out for this man's soul. If he does not know you as Lord and Savior, raise him from the dead now in the name of Jesus.
What is going on in here?
Shock him one more time.
He said, we can't. He's dead. It's over. I said, shock him one more time.
All right, Billy. Okay, just unpack that for us. What did we see there?
So we're seeing, I mean, this is an incredible story. We're watching Dr. Crandall deal with a situation where there is a man who's dead. He's been dead for 40 minutes. They've been trying to bring him back. He's had a heart attack. And Dr. Crandall, and we developed this full story in the documentary so you can see it, but he leaves the room after this man dies, and he's walking in the hallway, and he feels God tell him to go back and pray for this man. Now you picture, this is a guy they're ready to take to the morgue. He's been dead for 40 minutes. And so he ignores this prompting at first. He feels it again. So he says, okay, I guess I'm going to go back. So he goes back, and I'm sure the nurse is thinking, what in the world? And you see this happening in the clip. And he prays over this man. And he tells the nurse, he tells the doctor, shock him one more time. And they're thinking, we can't do that. He's been dead for, even if there was a heartbeat, which there wouldn't be, he would be non-functioning.
Yeah.
They shock him, a perfect heartbeat comes back, and we interviewed Jeff Markin, this man, in this documentary. He's completely fine, came back to life after 40 minutes. And so that's the kind of story that we're dealing with, medically documented. I mean,
That's
to be dead
chills.
for 40 minutes and be completely fine and alive. Now, what if he hadn't listened to that voice and gone back?
That guy would have been in heaven.
Right. Well, yeah, that guy might be like, hey. Now, actually, you know, it's interesting, though, and we get into this. The guy experienced, he had sort of a...
That was my next question. Go
Yeah,
there.
yeah. It didn't sound very heavenly, let's say. So there's a
Oh
whole
my gosh.
experience in that we do address of what he was feeling
Yeah.
during this ordeal. So he had not accepted Christ. He was not a Christian. He is now.
Okay.
He is now.
More chills.
More chills. Yeah. So
Yeah, but
that is a crazy story.
yeah, and so you'll get into some of the NDE, the near-death experience, in when we see it, the whole of it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've read a few of those, and from real doctors and surgeons, and they are terrifying, and people need to hear them. But the lost need to hear this stuff. Okay, tell us about the second clip before we watch it.
Okay, so this second clip deals with Brian and Meg LaPoo. They live out in New Jersey. He was a police officer, and he fell on the ice, just like any of us could, right? We've all fallen before on the ice. He falls on the ice and breaks his neck and ends up paralyzed for 10 years on half of his body, wearing a brace, in excruciating pain, loses his job, and he also experiences a pretty incredible miracle healing, to the point where he's walking around fine now. He doesn't have any issues. We were at his house, but for 10 years suffering profusely until he went to a prayer event and everything changed.
Is that right? And did you say, was he a believer before or no?
Yeah, they were Christians, but I think, and what's interesting is they were Christians, and they spent 10 years trying to get healing. I mean, imagine going to event after event after event.
It's biblical right there, man. Gosh.
Right. Well, the woman in Mark 5 who's desperate
Yes.
to be healed, right? It's the
Yes.
same story. I mean, she just wants to touch Jesus. She's desperate
Yeah.
after 12 years.
Just touch
losing
his
all of her
robe,
money.
passing
Yep.
by.
And that's very much what happened. But he almost gave up. He was almost done. I mean,
Yeah.
he said to his wife, I don't want to go to another prayer event. I don't want to be touched or prayed for over again. And it was that last event that they went to. And we actually have the real footage that you will see in the film of his hand opening back up as this prayer was happening. So it's pretty incredible.
And the pastor was closing the service, and he said, if there's anyone else that needs prayer for any other ailment or condition, the prayer team will be up here, and come on up and they'll pray for you. I'm not one to say I feel something or whatever. I can tell you without any doubt whatsoever, something grabbed me by the back of my shirt and neck and lifted me straight up out of my seat.
All right, welcome back. Billy, clip number 3. What do we got?
So this is footage from Mozambique, and this is Dr. Josh and Candy Brown, and they have a crazy story, and I won't get into their story because what you're watching and what you're about to watch in this clip is actually them going over to Mozambique, and they're measuring, and this is really fascinating, prayer over people who are blind and the impact of prayer, of healing prayer over these individuals. And you will see in this clip what they are documenting, and they have been, Josh and Candy Brown have been some of the most interesting people out there. They are academics. He's a neuroscientist, okay? And they do research on this, medically documented research on these miracles, and you can see them actually out there in this clip doing some of this, and you'll see the results of what happens here in this video.
Then Heidi Baker prayed for the individuals, and then after she did her prayer intervention, we again retested those individuals.
Yeah, okay. So that's the 2125 vision. She had both eyes open. We got to 2125. Hallelujah! For having been totally blind. For having been totally blind.
Oh my gosh, all of these clips are just amazing. Absolutely love it. And I just got I don't know what you say, the link to see the behind the scenes thing, for media. I'm like, I am watching this thing today. Tell us anything else. I'll just give you the mic and you you close it out.
You know, I think the big thing we also had to address in this, and this is important, when we were putting Investigating the Supernatural together, we had to address the people who don't get miracles, because a lot of us, we know what it's like to suffer or watch a loved one suffer. Even Lazarus, who was raised from the dead, died again, right? You know, the miracles at some point run out for us, right? We don't live forever. And there are people who desperately seek healing and they do not get it. And so there's mystery, and there's also the real full trust in God. The belief, and you have to hold these two beliefs, that we can trust him no matter what happens. And on the flip side, that we have to believe that the healing is possible up to that very last moment. And that's a difficult tension for people to live with.
That's excellent. It's you think of Daniel, you know, we can't bow to you, and the Lord can rescue us. He may, but we can't bow to you but we're still going to trust him. And I think that's the essence of what you're saying. And it's interesting because so much of my work and my writing, the Lord, you know, when he got me into persecution ministry, if I had to simplify it, he said, listen, learn, and shout. Listen to the persecuted. Learn their lessons and shout them to the world. And it took me so long to understand it. So the message is honestly about suffering, what the Lord's doing with suffering in our lives. Because this is the human condition, right? So, and the only thing I'd say to people is you can go check out some of my books or whatever. This isn't a plug. But that suffering is a door to transformation. It's a way to get you to where you can't get to on your own. You won't get to where he wants to take you on your own unless you cling to him. And the only way we cling to him is typically, unfortunately, when we suffer. So, but there's a real message in there. You know, people get stuck in the why. They get on the merry-go-round of why, and you have to get off that. But anyways, I said I was going to give you the mic to close out, and I lied, because then I just did.
I like it. I second everything you just said, and I would say as we close, you know, I would love for people, no matter what group you're in, you know, that I mentioned earlier, the Christians who believe in miracles, the ones who aren't sure, the secularists, the people who are agnostic, that you would be inspired by this, that you would feel free to challenge it, watch it, challenge it. I think you're going to have a really hard time challenging these stories. But I would love to hear from people on it, and I'm hoping that they feel inspired. You can go to cbn.com/supernatural.
And that'll give us all the information. But ballpark, when is this thing coming out?
So you can actually get it right now. It is now out.
Okay.
It is now out. So you can go right there. You can stream it there. You can watch
fantastic.
it. And can't wait to hear what people think.
All right. Well, thanks for all your work, my brother. Can't wait to see this thing.
Thank you.
All right. God bless.
Life Audio.